Two retired couples. Similar homes. Similar sale prices. Same calendar year. One of them walked away feeling genuinely free. The other is still sitting at a kitchen table trying to figure out where roughly $100,000 quietly went. The difference between them had nothing to do with the market. Nothing to do with their realtor. Nothing to do with how long they negotiated. It had everything to do with one question, and exactly when they asked it. If you're over 65 and you're thinking about selling your home, or you already have, what I'm about to show you might be the most important comparison you've never seen. Frank and Diane had owned their house for 31 years. 4 bedrooms. Corner lot. The kind of place where every room has a different memory attached to it. The kitchen where their daughter did homework, the driveway where their son learned to drive, the back porch that never got fixed but somehow everybody loved anyway. They bought it for $195,000 when the neighborhood was still developing. By the time the kids were long gone and the lawn had become more obligation than pride, they decided it was finally time. The offer came in at $940,000. They looked at each other across the kitchen counter and felt something they hadn't felt in years. Security. Real, tangible, we actually did it security. Frank called his brother that same night. He told him the number. "That's our retirement right there," Frank said. He wasn't wrong about the number. He was wrong about what was hiding inside it. 3 streets over, Carol and Raymond were doing almost identical math. Their house, bought for $210,000 in roughly the same era, had just gone under contract for $910,000. Similar neighborhood. Similar appreciation. Similar life. But before Carol even started pricing moving boxes, she made a phone call. Not to celebrate. Not to the realtor. To her accountant. And she asked one question. "What is our actual taxable gain going to look like when this closes?" 4 words. That's what separated these two families from each other. Now sit with that for a moment, because I don't want to move past it too quickly. Both of these couples did everything the old playbook said to do. Bought a home. Raised a family. Stayed put. Paid it off slowly and steadily over decades. By every standard measure, both of them were responsible. Both were prepared. Both believed they'd earned this. So why did one of them come out the other side feeling like something had been quietly taken from them? Here's where most people have a blind spot, and it's a big one. When you sell a house, you think in terms of sale price. That's the number on the yard sign. That's the number at the closing table. That's the number Frank told his brother. But the IRS doesn't ask what you sold for. It asks what you gained. And those two numbers are not the same conversation. Frank and Diane's gain, the spread between what they paid 30 years ago and what they sold for, landed at $745,000. As a married couple, the tax code allows them to exclude up to $500,000 of that from federal taxes. Which sounds like protection. Until you do the subtraction. $245,000 in taxable gain. Still sitting there. Still owed. Frank asked his accountant to say the number again when she told him. She did. Same answer. That number wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a technicality that could be appealed or waived. It was the rule, sitting right there in the tax code, perfectly quiet, perfectly patient, waiting for exactly this moment. The moment after closing. Carol and Raymond had nearly identical numbers on paper. Similar gain. Similar exclusion. Similar exposure. But Carol had asked her question early enough to actually do something about it. She and Raymond spent several months before closing reviewing their other income sources. They made some adjustments. They understood, before a single document was signed, exactly how the remaining taxable gain would land, and they planned around it accordingly. They couldn't make the gain disappear. That was never the goal. But they could control what happened next. Frank and Diane found out what happened next after the fact. And this is where I need you to stay close. Because what comes next is the part that surprises almost everyone, even people who thought they understood the tax piece. Selling a home is a single event. But the income it creates doesn't always behave like one. When your income spikes dramatically in a given year, even from a house sale, even from something that feels like a one-time windfall, Medicare notices. Specifically, Medicare uses income from 2 years prior to calculate certain premium adjustments. It looks backward, long after the sale is done. Months after Frank and Diane had settled into their new condo, after the boxes were unpacked, after the photos were back on the walls, after they'd taken that trip they kept postponing, a letter arrived. Diane opened it the way you open something that looks routine. It wasn't routine. It was a Medicare premium adjustment. Their costs had increased. Not slightly. Meaningfully. And the adjustment wasn't temporary. It would follow them. She called Frank into the kitchen. He read the letter. Read it again. Neither of them could point to a moment where anyone had mentioned this was coming. Because no one had. Carol and Raymond received a nearly identical letter around the same time. But Carol had thought to ask about Medicare when she asked about the gain. Her accountant had flagged it specifically. You'll probably see a premium adjustment about 2 years out. Here's roughly what to expect and how to plan for it. When the letter arrived at their door, it wasn't a crisis. It was a line item. Already budgeted for. Already absorbed. Same letter. 2 entirely different experiences. Think about what that means. Same neighborhood. Same decade. Same real estate market. Same appreciation story. One family is managing retirement with breathing room. The other is quietly recalculating, wondering if they moved too fast, spent too freely in those first months after closing, or simply trusted that the closing table was the finish line. It wasn't the finish line. It was a starting gun. I want to be honest about what that actually feels like, because I think the emotional part matters just as much as the financial part here. Frank mentioned to his son, months later, that the sale hadn't felt the way he expected. He said it quietly, the way people say things they're still working through. I thought paying off a house was supposed to be the safe part, he said. The part you couldn't lose. And he wasn't entirely wrong. The equity was real. The appreciation was real. 30 years of building something, that was real. But the rules that activate when you sell, the gain calculation, the income thresholds, the Medicare look back, those are just as real. And they're invisible until the moment they aren't. That's the part nobody puts on the for sale sign. Here's what I want you to carry forward from these 2 families. The tax wasn't avoidable, not entirely. Homes that appreciate by $700,000 or more are going to generate taxable events. That's just arithmetic. But knowing it was coming changed everything for Carol and Raymond. It changed how they managed other income that year. It changed how they approached the Medicare timeline. It changed how they spent in the months after closing, because they already knew what was spoken for before they touched a dollar of it. Frank and Diane spent freely in those early months. They felt wealthy. By the sale price, they were. But a portion of what they were spending was money the IRS and Medicare hadn't finished collecting yet. By the time the bills arrived, the spending was already done. The sale that was supposed to simplify retirement quietly introduced complications nobody had explained. Not the realtor. Not the title company. Not anyone at the closing table. And in Frank and Diane's case, not their accountant. Because the question was never asked until it was already too late to act on the answer. Selling your home after 65 can absolutely be the right move. For a lot of people, it is. The equity is real. The smaller home is real. The freedom from maintenance is real. But the sale is not just a transaction. It's a trigger. It touches your taxes, your Medicare costs, your withdrawal strategy, your flexibility for the next decade of retirement. And unlike the financial mistakes you had time to recover from at 40, the ones made at 68 don't always come with enough runway. Carol and Raymond didn't have special knowledge. They didn't have a financial advantage. They had one question, asked before the ink dried. Tell me in the comments, going into this video, were you closer to the first couple or the second one? Hit like if this changed how you'd think about that. And subscribe Henry Wealth Blueprint, because the next comparison we break down might be the exact decision sitting on your desk right now, And the difference between those two outcomes is a lot smaller than most people want to believe.